Hello, class. I hope that you're doing well this Friday. I hope that you've had a really positive week and accomplished some things, not just in school, but in all the different roles that you occupy. Had a good time connecting with folks with the role plays. We got some award-winning actors and actresses out there. So I really appreciated your work, and like I said, I'll be getting you that feedback. Within the next couple of days. You should have it before Monday. Class, to try to do the best that I can in terms of addressing some of your questions, what I've decided to do is one, we have office hours, which happened today in about 30 minutes or so. And then we also have a weekly video, which comes out on Monday. And then what I decided to do to try and manage the myriad of emails that I sometimes receive is to take all the emails throughout the week and then produce another video addressing each question. Therefore, you have an opportunity on Sunday to submit for the Monday video. You have an opportunity to participate in office hours, and as I shared, I hope to see everybody participate in at least one office hour over the semester, hopefully more. It's a great time to meet your classmates. And then lastly, we'll have this mechanism where I'll hold all questions for the week until Friday, and then I will produce a weekly video because it's simply easier than trying to type up a grammatically correct, clear, concise email. So let's get started. This is with regard to the diversity and use of self paper. So I thought that I'd send out correspondence saying that you can match up with your own colleague to do this paper. So here's the deal, and I'm going to put this in the text of the message as well. If you want to be paired up, please email me by the end of the day today, and I will make those pairings first thing in the morning. If you've already found somebody, don't need to hear from you. Therefore, we've got 2 tracks. I don't want to mess up anything that's already been done. Today, Friday, please email me if you want to be matched up with someone, and I will match you with someone. If not, don't worry about it. All right? So one of the questions was on the instructions in terms of compare and contrast your own values about race, class, gender, sexuality, etc. Draw from the literature, and your in-class interview should support your statements about the values, class, race, ethnicity, etc. So, basically there are a number of themes here that you can compare and contrast on. And if you've already picked someone, you should pick someone who's different from you, and hopefully when I assign them, that person will be different from you. But I really think it's how you dig down, like race. Some of us are biracial. Ethnicity. Some of us use different labels in terms of our ethnicity. Class. There are different ways to measure class. And so, while you may be the same in some areas, if you look sharply at the contrast, if you dig down deep in terms of those labels, you're probably going to find some differences. It is very important in this paper that you utilize the book, and I'll continue to say this throughout the class, is that I expect that when you are making references, whether it be to race, ethnicity, gender, some of the differences in your paper, that you are using in-text citations to demonstrate that you made a connection between the material in the interview and the material in the book. Now that doesn't take a lot. All it takes is a citation, okay? It could be the citation from the book, it could be a citation from the reading, it could be in reference to a concept, okay? It doesn't have to be an explanation or a definition. I'm simply looking for a citation. You can even put the chapter citation. If it's a direct quote, then you can put the page citation. But I would say, on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of the importance of you citing information in your paper, based on the application of what you found in the interview, I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of importance to me, it is definitely a 10. With regard to this paper, and I get a lot of questions with regard to APA style. include a reference page, include a title page. It doesn't count in the page count, okay? It does not count in the page count. This is definitely, you know, at least a 4 to 5 page paper. You have 3 to 5, but I feel it's definitely a 4 to 5. So reference page, title page doesn't count. Do you want us to include headers in the page margin and with the page numbers? I mean, sure, that helps. Are we meant to use sections identified in the instructions as level 1 or level 2 headers? Just use them as headers. Okay, so if you're going to talk about race, use a subheading for race. If you're going to talk about gender, use a subheading for gender. If you're going to talk about sexual orientation, use a subheading for sexual orientation. Those things are important in terms of guiding the reader. Okay, so we sort of covered, you know, you need to support it with your literature. Okay, you don't have to cover all of the different themes, but, you know, I would say probably about 4 or 5 would be adequate. All right, and we've covered some of the APA citations. And again, if you are looking for a partner, please email me by the end of the day. I'm going to take a look at these instructions once more in terms of the diversity and use of SEL paper. So you're clearly making some distinctions in terms of your identity, your group memberships, okay? And when you're doing this, ladies and gentlemen, don't try and do too much. Don't try and do every identity and every group membership. You know, if you do a couple with support, okay, so I am a Christian. I'm a member of Community Bible Church in San Antonio. In my capacity as a member of Community Bible Church, I'm also a part of BYOB, which is BYOB, yeah, it's a basketball group. It's a men's basketball group, not bring your own beverage. And so I'm a part of that group, and I've been a member for 7 years. Boom, I need some support. Now you might list, I might say something like, my name is Emmett Gill. I'm a professor at George Mason University. I'm an adjunct professor at George Washington University. I'm an adjunct professor at North Carolina State University. I'm the founder of Athlete Talk. I'm the executive director of Athletes and Advocates for Education. But then I may only go on to discuss my role, let's say, at George Mason and Athletes and Advocates for Education. All right, so I might give a little bit of depth on those roles. And that's really what I expect with regard to your content and the way to format your content. Now, it looks to me through this paper, you know, that you want to utilize your own identities and the research to examine how your identity may impact you as a professional. How do you understand your intersectionality and positionality? Okay, so the way that you structure your paper is to explain some of these things, but then there are some questions in the instructions that you should answer, and those are up in the first paragraph of the paper. And then there's the issue of comparing and contrasting your values with those of someone in your class. Okay, so if I were structuring this paper, I would talk about my different identities. That would be the first part, right? And then in the second section, I would address those questions that are at the end of the first paragraph that talk about intersectionality, positionality, and how it may impact your profession. That would be the second major component. So you got one major component, your identities. 2, you talked about the intersectionality and positionality questions at the end of the first paragraph. And then maybe for the last page, I would say page. Then I would talk about some of the differences. And you're not going to be able to talk about them all. You might list some. We're different here. We're similar here. And list them, but then again, and you'll continue to hear me say this throughout the semester, you might select 2 or 3 that you go in depth in. And that's what's the most important part to me, ladies and gentlemen, the depth. And that's why I say you can't do them all. Do 2 or 3, go in depth, talk about them in a respectful way. In terms of the first part, where you're talking about your identities, I don't expect to see too many citations there. That's cool, in-text citations. But the second piece, I expect to see some. And possibly the third piece, I expect to see some. So please make sure that you're integrating the course material. All right, lastly, I got a question about the Hutchinson reading. I did email that reading to the class on the 10th of September, so check that out. Also, I got a question about the Miley reading. And my colleagues and I, we've been trying to find this reading. We've consulted with the librarian. We cannot find it, so you will not be held accountable for it. If somebody does find it, send it to me so I can share it with the class. Okay, in terms of your task groups assignment, I sent out the task groups today. I tried to make them a little bit more broad than maybe in the other classes because I know you've got a lot of work. So I said, let me make the groups hardy so there won't be so much work. So you got those assignments today. And, I think the instructions really, the first piece, is pretty clear. You want to have some co-leaders. You want to choose a task to accomplish and come up with a work plan. And feel free to share any drafts with me that you plan to. Creating a Facebook page for self-care was one example. A brochure. Curating a list of videos on how social workers can be involved in different issues. I hope somebody does something on sports social work, to be honest with you, and I'd be more than happy to help you with that. But, you're going to have a task, and you're going to have co-leaders. And I think one of the things that's really important here is that you're learning how to work on an interdisciplinary team. And we may all be social workers, but in essence, it's preparing you to work on interdisciplinary teams in the future. So, you're going to do things like, submit the SOAP notes. You're going to talk about the progress towards the meeting goals, attendance, meeting focus, subjective, objective, group experience, sort of assessment, plan for the next group. Here's what's going to be important to me. This is not a rosy process. Okay, some of the things that I get from groups all the time is like, hooray, hooray, everything's okay. Hooray, hooray, everything's okay. And everything's not okay. And so it's important for you to talk about that. And it's important for it to be a little bit bumpy, right? In terms of meeting times, in terms of professional standards for the work, those things are important because you're all receiving this grade. All group members should submit reflective journal entries on their meeting experience. And this is meant to include a critical analysis of the group's process. You're not going to learn unless you're critical. You're not going to learn unless there's something wrong. And so I expect to see that. And I'm really honest about that. Everything is not going to go 100% with these groups. People are going to miss meetings. People are going to disagree with ideas. People aren't going to put in quality work. And you need to be able to share that and feel comfortable about that to make sure that your group is doing the best that you can and to prepare for those types of conversations when you become members of the social work field. All right, so that's a little bit on the diversity of self paper. That's a little bit in terms of the first assignment that's due for the task groups. Again, you do have your task groups. Lastly, you will be receiving feedback on your role plays and grades over the weekend. With that said, I hope you have an outstanding weekend. Practice self-care. If you're in the Virginia, D.C., Maryland area, it's supposed to be a beautiful weekend. Get out, have some fun. Take care of yourself. You can't pour into others until you pour into yourself. Make sure you're full. Peace.